step that we're gonna do is, my recipe calls for melted butter, 3 tablespoons. So I'm gonna cut my butter up into small pieces. If your butter is hard, you might need a parent to help you out with this bit. And then I'm gonna drop it in my microwave safe container, and I'm gonna put it in the microwave. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook it for 30 seconds at 50% of the power, so it doesn't get too hot and explode in the microwave, because that would be a big mess that we don't want to clean up. And while we're waiting for the butter to melt, we can start measuring out our flour. I like to prepare my pancakes in a bowl with a little lip on it, so it makes pouring easier into the pan. All right, let's go check on our butter. You'll see after the first one, it didn't melt very much at all, and that's okay. We can put it in for another 30 seconds at half power again. And then, so my recipe calls for 1.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna use my half cup measuring, and it helps to use a spoon to measure the flour into your container. The recipe calls for all-purpose flour. I'm using whole wheat right now because I have more of that than all-purpose flour. I'm gonna spoon my flour into my cup, and since this is a 1/2 cup, and I need 1.5 cups of flour, I'm gonna have to fill this 3 times to get, because 1/2 of 1/2 is 1. So that's my 1 cup, and then I need another extra 1/2 a cup to get the 1.5 cups. So 3 of these total, so that's 1. Two. And if it's taking you longer to measure out the flour than it is for me, you can always pause the video and finish up one step before moving on to the next one. And then it looks like we'll need a little bit more. So that's my 1.5 cups of flour. That was a 1/3 cup. And now I'm going to tie this back together. And let's go check on our melted butter again. So this time you can see that there's some butter melted, but not all of it yet. So I just give it a quick little stir, and we're gonna put it back in the microwave for, I bet you can guess, another 30 seconds at half power. And then the next step in my recipe says to add sugar, baking powder, salt, and nutmeg. So let's do the sugar first. This recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of sugar. So let's get out the 1 tablespoon. So here's my tablespoon measure. This one I'm just gonna dip it in there and shake out any excess sugar that's over the level. I'll do 1, 2, 3 tablespoons. And then let's see, how much baking powder do we need? We need 1 tablespoon of baking powder, so we can keep the same measurement out. And what's really nice about the baking powder is, if you can see it, there's a little ledge in here, so that way when you scoop your tablespoon in, if you get too much like this and it's really overflowing, you can scrape it along that little ledge, and then you have an even scoop. So that's 1 tablespoon. And the microwave was beeping, so let's go check on our butter again. Gonna give it a quick stir to make sure everything got melted. But now you can see that it's all liquid right now. So what we're just gonna do is just gonna set this aside to cool, and in a little bit we're gonna use the same container to measure out the milk that we need. Okay, so we got our flour, sugar, and baking powder in here. The next addition is salt, and it says 1/4 of a teaspoon salt. And for this one, I just estimate how much salt that is. So I'm gonna use my salt grinder and grind what I think is about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So it's not gonna be too much. And if you have a 1/4 of a teaspoon measure, you can actually use that to measure your salt out too. And I'm sure actually some of you probably have maybe a salt container that looks like this, and this one you can just pour it into a measure, but I like to use my salt grinder. And then so I'm gonna say that that's probably about 1/4 of a teaspoon, and pour that in. And then this recipe also calls for some nutmeg, and the recipe calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, which isn't a whole lot, and I'm just gonna eyeball that again. So I'm just gonna give a few little shakes of nutmeg. And then I also like to add cinnamon, so I'm going to use just a spoon to just get a little bit of cinnamon, not too much. This is maybe about 1/4 of a teaspoon, same as the salt we got. Just enough to flavor it a little bit. And then it says to whisk this up, so I'm gonna grab my whisk. I'm gonna whisk all these ingredients together. And then these were all the dry ingredients that we needed. So our next step is to add in the wet ingredients. And actually, usually vanilla is a wet ingredient, but I have powdered vanilla, so I'm gonna add that in now. And it calls for 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So when you're doing your wet ingredients, you can add your vanilla into that, but I'm gonna add them into my dry, and that's probably about 1/2 teaspoon. Because my vanilla is dry and your vanilla might be wet, or if you have vanilla bean paste, that would also be a wet ingredient. So you would add that to your milk and butter and eggs, which we're going to measure out next. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my eggs to my butter. This usually calls for 2 eggs. We're gonna crack it just like that. This shell broke a little bit. There's 1 egg. And then our second egg. I'm gonna wash my hands now. Then we're gonna mix these up. I'm just gonna use my spoon. You can use your whisk or a fork instead. And the next wet ingredient is the milk. And my measure only goes up to 1 cup, but I need 1 1/4 cups of milk. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour the first 1/4 cup in here. And you'll see right now I'm at about 3/4 of a cup with the eggs and the butter and my spoon in there. So I'm just gonna pour in until I get about 1/4 cup of milk. I'll mix this together, add it in here, and then we'll measure out another 1 full cup of milk. And that should be about 1/4 of a cup. It's hard to see the milk in here, but you see now I have about 1 cup I'm gonna pour all that into here. Drop the spoon in the sink. Then we're gonna measure out another 1 cup of milk. And so this is the 1 cup size. I'm gonna have it facing me. But when you use liquid measurement, you have to get down low so you can, when I'm pouring in the milk, there'll be a little bit of a dip in it. And I want the bottom of that dip to be at the 1 cup marker. So right now it's at the 1 cup. So that means I've got enough milk in here. And I can pour it in. Now I'm gonna put this into the sink. Cover this back up. And then I'm going to whisk this all together. And this is our pancake batter. And when you whisk it, when it's all done, there's still gonna be some clumps in it. You don't want it to be perfectly smooth, but you see I've got still lots of dry flour in there, and we want to make sure that most of that flour gets mixed in with the wet ingredients. But I'll show you when I'm done that there'll still be some lumps in my batter. It won't be perfectly smooth. So that's my batter. And so now if you want, you can start making these pancakes up right away you'll need a parent to help you out though, because you'll need to use the stove. Get a pan, not too hot, maybe put some butter or oil to grease your pan, and then pour in, depending on your size pan, 2 or 3 pancakes. And I know that you've made pancakes with Teacher Keeley in your classroom. So just remember, you're gonna wait to see the bubbles form on top, and when the bubbles start to pop, it's time to flip them over to the other side, because it means the first side is done. And before I close the video, I also wanted to let you know that I know that it's been hard to find flour right now. So there's also another way for you to make pancakes that I'm not gonna show you right now, but maybe if you're interested, I can record another video. But to make those ones, all you need are eggs and either a banana or, oh, I just lost the potato, and a banana or sweet potato puree. So what we do is you mash up 1 banana, or I think it's half a cup to 1 cup of sweet potato puree. You put it in a bowl, and then you mix in 2 eggs with it, and that is your pancake batter. And then you would cook it the same way you do any other pancake. The texture is going to be different than one used with flour, but they're still pretty yummy. And you can also still add nutmeg, cinnamon. You can maybe add a little bit of like maple syrup to make them taste like maple, or even a little bit of baking powder or salt or baking soda to help them rise too. Sometimes when I make those, I put in a little bit of cocoa powder so they taste a little bit chocolatey. So that's if you don't have any flour right now. Then you can also use bananas and eggs, or sweet potatoes and eggs, which are all pretty easy ingredients to find in the grocery store. So I'm gonna cook these up now, and I hope you enjoy making pancake batter with me. Bye. Hi again. I realized that one of my favorite parts about making pancakes is putting different toppings in them when they're cooking. So I decided I would actually show you some of the cooking process. So what I did is I just poured in 3 pancakes into my pan. I'm gonna use a little bit too much batter because they're all kind of connecting together right now, but that's okay. We can always fix that when we flip them. But I'm gonna turn this camera around so you can see me putting in the toppings. So you can use any toppings that you like. I feel like blueberries are really common. For a real treat, chocolate chips are always fun to add to your pancakes. You could do maybe some chopped up nuts. If you have granola lying around your kitchen, you could do some granola. That could be really yummy, granola pancakes. Or any cereal would be fun. And then you have 2 breakfast foods in one, which is cereal and pancakes. That could be super yummy. I had some leftover bacon, so what I did is I just broke it up into small pieces, and I decided to try bacon in my pancakes today. I've never made bacon pancakes before, but I usually like to eat my pancakes with bacon sometimes, so I thought it would be very yummy in here. So I'm just gonna sprinkle the bacon around, and that's the rest of my bacon, so that's where as much as I get in my pancakes today. And then if you see that there's a few bubbles forming on the pancakes, but not enough for me to flip them just yet. So we're gonna let them keep cooking, and I guess we can talk about maybe some other topping suggestions. So we talked about maybe cereal that could be really fun, granola, blueberries, chocolate chips. If you have dried fruits, you can maybe put some dried fruits in there. That might give it a little bit of a chewy texture in your pancakes, like raisins. I know some friends like dried mangoes. If you have frozen fruits, you could do that. It might be good to let them thaw out before you put them in so they don't cool your pancake batter off too much. Actually, sometimes what I like to do with frozen fruits is to to put them in the microwave and warm them up and then mash them up and then pour them on top of my pancakes after they're all done cooking. Because as much fun it is to put things into your pancakes when they're cooking, sometimes it can be even more fun to add special toppings at the end. Mine look about ready to flip though, so let's go back to the pan. So you see there's lots of bubbles forming now. That tells me that they're cooking and that they're about ready to flip. So I'm gonna, since all my pancakes got connected together, I'm gonna break them up with my spatula before I flip them. And then I'm gonna start with this pancake because it was the first to go on the pan and it's still a little stuck. But the fact that it's stuck lets me know that they're definitely cooked on the one side. And there we go. This is ready to flip. And you see how it's nice and golden brown on the one side, not too dark. And I also notice about these pancakes is that they got really big. I have some that are already have been finished cooking. So you'll see that these pancakes are nice and thick. They're very fluffy pancakes. This one had some bacon in it too. But yeah, so these are really yummy pancakes. So if you like a fluffy pancake recipe, this might be a good one for you to try. If you've never tried this one before, you can obviously always cook your favorite recipe that you like at home too. So let me know what you end up choosing to put inside your pancakes or maybe put on top of them instead. I'm probably just gonna drizzle a little bit of maple syrup on these because they have bacon in them. The ones that don't have bacon in them, might add those warmed up berries and pour those over so that it like the berry juices sweeten them naturally, so I don't need to add any extra maple syrup to them to help them get a bit more flavor. So let me know how you do with your pancakes. Bye!